Hey there, CINEMASTER fans! Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The story. What You Wish For starts with a guy named Ryan who just arrived at an airport in a Latin American country. He tries to get a taxi to take him, but all the drivers ignore him because the money he wants to pay is too little, so the man is forced to walk. He keeps walking in the street until he meets a driver who came specifically for him and hands him a letter from someone named Jack. The letter says that Jack can't meet him now because he's busy and it's late, but he left him the code to his house so he can go in and rest until he arrives. Ryan gets to the house, looks around, and is shocked. The house is very big and luxurious, standing alone in the middle of the forest. He goes inside, keeps walking around, amazed by its beauty, until he finds a bottle of wine and decides to cook coming in. So he runs out to see who it is and finds Jack, his old friend whom he hasn't seen in 12 years. They hug and start talking about their lives and what separated them. We then discover that they were both classmates in a cooking course back in school, but fate played its game. Ryan worked in a small roadside restaurant, earning a modest salary, while Jack worked for a big company that caters dinners at rich people's parties. The house they're in doesn't actually belong to Jack. It turns out the company he works for rented it because there's a big event happening there the next day. Jack is the head chef for the event and is responsible for everything, from the ingredients to the menu. Jack tells Ryan that this job earns him many times what Ryan makes at any small restaurant because the clients are rich and their money is endless, coming from all over the world. The next morning, Jack takes Ryan for a ride in his new classic car. On the way, they stop at a small restaurant in a quiet town and meet a girl named Alice. Alice used to work for a company but quit, saying she plans to travel the world with the money she has. Jack and Ryan tell her they're chefs and have been friends since cooking school. Alice asks them an awkward question. Which one of you is the better cook? Jack, as usual, confident in himself, invites her to the house for a cooking challenge, and the winner takes all. The surprise comes when Alice tastes the food. She likes Ryan's cooking more. After this great meal, the three of them go down to the pool to have some fun and talk about everything in their lives. Jack's story comes up again, but this time with the expensive watch he's wearing, which has a big story behind it that we'll find out about later. The watch Jack is wearing actually belonged to Ryan. He lost it to Jack in a bet 15 years ago, and Jack has had it ever since. After that, Jack and Alice decide to spend the night together and leave Ryan alone, sitting and thinking about the meal he just made, feeling a strange mix of pride for what he loves and bitterness about a life that isn't going his way. The next morning, Ryan gets a message from a guy named Rabbit, a loan shark who's after him for the money he owes. At that point, we understand that Ryan's trip isn't just to see Jack. He's running from people chasing him day and night. Later, Jack comes back from dropping Alice at the hotel and tells Ryan he doesn't have to go out again because he has work. As soon as Jack leaves, Ryan takes the opportunity to open Jack's laptop, which was still on. And when he looks at his bank account, he's shocked. Jack has $17 million with jobs and clients everywhere. But the biggest surprise comes when Jack returns at night and opens up to Ryan. This man with millions talks about how empty and miserable his life is, despite all the money. Ryan was planning to tell him about his problems with the people chasing him and ask for money. But when he saw the sadness in Jack's eyes, he stayed quiet, feeling it wasn't the right time and that he should wait. Unfortunately, the next day, Ryan wakes up to a nightmare. Jack has killed himself. Instead of calling the police after what happened to Jack, Ryan sits and thinks about himself and the debts strangling him. Suddenly, he makes a decision. He'll use the money in Jack's account to pay off his debts. But the problem is, he doesn't know the account's PIN, so he hides Jack's body temporarily and decides to go to the bank himself to withdraw the money. He gets a fake ID online in Jack's name, but with his own picture, and it will arrive in a few days. But fate doesn't give him a chance. On the same day, he receives another threat from the man chasing him, this time with a picture of his mother, saying if he doesn't pay quickly, she'll be harmed. This threat throws Ryan into a spiral of terror. He promises them he'll pay $50,000 and asks for 1 week. From that moment, Ryan has only one goal: to get the money at any cost. Night falls, and Ryan has no choice but to get rid of Jack's body. He takes it and throws it into a lake near the house. There's no going back now. The next day, Ryan goes to the same restaurant they were at 2 days ago, trying to act normal, but he's surprised by another message from the man chasing him. This time the threat is clear. If the money doesn't come today, your mother will die. He calls the man and pleads for more time, but the man doesn't believe a word. Ryan returns home, his heart pounding with fear, but is surprised by something unexpected: a car parked in front of the house. He goes in, not knowing who they are, and finds two people waiting for him. The surprise is that these two have never seen Jack before and think Ryan is Jack himself. They start asking about the event preparations and the menu. Ryan tries to stay calm and answers them confidently, using his cooking skills, seeing this as a chance to save himself. He asks for some of the money in advance to pay his debt and save his mother. Finally, Ryan feels he can breathe. His debt is paid, and his mother is safe, until the two ask him for a strange and terrifying request. They coldly tell him, "We want you to cook human meat and choose the victim we'll eat." Suddenly, everything is upside down, and Ryan is shocked, unable to comprehend what he's hearing. At that moment, he realizes that the company Jack worked for wasn't normal. It's a secret organization organization that holds parties for psychologically disturbed rich people who pay millions to eat human flesh. That's when the real nightmare begins. If the event fails and the guests don't like the food, his end will come that same night. Ryan thinks about escaping, but Imogen, one of the guests, notices his behavior and blocks every escape route. Imogen sits down to explain Ryan's situation, telling him that the guests coming tomorrow are the richest of the rich, and one of them could pay $500,000 for a single dinner. She continues, coldly telling him, "We're a global network, so if you thought about escaping, your life would be in danger and we would find you, even if you were underground." At that moment, Ryan understood why Jack committed suicide. The man couldn't handle this disgusting job anymore and was trapped in it with no way out. The next day, Maurice woke Ryan up and told him they had work to do. They took him and went to the church they had been to a few days earlier. There, they focused on a little girl walking with her grandmother and started following her until they reached a bridge. While they were watching her, the grandmother entered a dense forest and Ryan and Maurice lost their trail. As they tried to hide, a young man who worked as a tire mechanic appeared in front of them and asked, "Are you looking for something here?" As soon as Maurice saw him, his eyes sparkled, and he decided that this was the new target. He pretended his car was broken and told the boy to come check it out, promising him good money for the repair. As soon as the boy got under the car, Maurice pulled out his gun and got ready to finish him off. Suddenly, the little girl and her grandmother reappeared, accompanied by a local police officer. The officer approached them and started asking, "Why are you chasing this little girl?" The situation could have ended in disaster, but Maurice was experienced, an old hand at this game, and knew how to handle these scenarios well. With complete calm, he took out a business card from his pocket and claimed he worked for a big company coming to open a hotel in the area and that they were surveying the site. The officer looked at the card, believed the story, and let them go. When they got back home, Imogen was waiting for them and, upset, asked why they brought only one body. Maurice explained what happened and said he had to give his business card to the officer to get out of the situation. When Imogen heard that, she understood and immediately took them to the basement. There, they brought down the tire mechanic's body and asked Ryan to prepare the ingredients so they could start cooking. Ryan was trembling, trying to act normal, holding the knives and cutting the body while trying to hide his terror. Imogen approached him and coldly said, "Don't forget, the customer requested something special. You have to cut out his tongue." Ryan resisted, but he had no choice. He did as she said. After a while, Maurice came down to the basement and helped Ryan prepare the ingredients. The two of them stood there, preparing the food. True, hellish cuisine. At that moment, Ryan started thinking about escaping. He thought of taking Jack's car and running away from that place no matter what. As he drove away from the house, he had only gone a few meters when suddenly he hit the gardener who worked in the garden. Maurice ran quickly to him, and Ryan tried to make excuses, saying the brakes weren't working. But Maurice wasn't that naive. Ryan was forced to confess he was planning to escape. Strangely, Maurice neither got angry nor threatened to tell Imogen. On the contrary, he calmly said, "Listen, Ryan, no one escapes from us. This company operates worldwide. We can find anyone, anywhere. You're not special." Ryan realized he was trapped with no escape. He went back to the kitchen, prepared his tools, and informed Imogen that he had prepared the dinner menu. As night fell and the rich guests started arriving one by one, Maurice welcomed them with a smile. Amidst the crowd and pressure, Imogen received news that two police officers were standing at the door. The atmosphere became tense, but she acted quickly and decided to intervene, acting as if everything was normal to avoid suspicion. The officers who entered were Detective Ruiz and Officer Gallo, the same ones Maurice and Ryan had seen earlier that day. The detective took out a photo from his pocket and said to Imogen, "I'm looking for this person, my nephew." The photo was of the mechanic they had killed that day. The disaster was that investigations showed Maurice and Ryan were present at the scene when the boy disappeared. The detective started asking, "Where's Ryan? I want to meet him." Imogen tried to remain calm and told them, "Please, I'll have him meet you." They entered the kitchen and the detective began questioning Ryan. "Have you seen this boy before?" Ryan tried to dodge the question, saying he didn't remember. Maybe he had met him. At that moment, Imogen interrupted and said, "Ryan has nothing to do with this. He's an architect at my real estate company." But the detective wasn't convinced and asked, "Then show me the hotel drawings and the list of materials you'll use for construction." Ryan started to get flustered. His words became strange and illogical, and it was clear the detective was suspicious. The detective decided to sit and wait for Maurice to talk to him. The atmosphere became electric, and Imogen felt things were heating up. Knowing that Ryan gets nervous quickly, she tried to take control and offered the officers some soup to distract them and buy time. Unbeknownst to the officers, the soup they were drinking was made from the same mechanic they were looking for. The detective sat in the kitchen, enjoying the food, unaware he was eating his own nephew's flesh. While eating, he said, "This meat tastes different. What kind is it?" Ryan tried to control himself and said, "It's a mix of pork and lamb." The detective asked to use his phone and started asking many questions about the building and hotel design, and Ryan was sweating, unable to answer or compose himself as the world spun around him. Suddenly, a sound came from another room. New guests had entered the house. The situation calmed down a bit, and everyone got distracted. Before Ryan could catch his breath, Imogen pulled him aside, her face full of anger, and said, "You're playing with fire. Do as we tell you and don't deviate from the script for even a second. After a while, the detective sat with Maurice and began professionally interrogating him. But Maurice, as usual, was always one step ahead. He managed to deceive him with a convincing excuse and got himself out of trouble. Before they left, the detective went to greet the guests who were gathering for dinner. One of the guests, a Japanese man, invited the detective to join them for dinner, but Officer Gallo had another engagement and said he would leave early. After a while, Maurice came and told Imogen there was an unexpected guest at the door who wanted to see Jack. That guest turned out to be Alice, the girl who had been with Jack before. Imogen tried to control the situation and told them to let her wait a bit, hoping she'd get bored and leave on her own. Ryan was shocked when he saw her. He hadn't expected her to show up at that moment in the middle of his nightmare. Alice entered the kitchen, watched Ryan cooking, and asked innocently, "Isn't Jack in the kitchen with you?" Ryan's face changed, but before he could answer, Alice saw the watch on his wrist, the watch she knew belonged to Jack. She started to suspect something was wrong and decided to get up and leave quickly. At that moment, one of the guests asked to see Jack to congratulate him on the unforgettable meal. This guest also had a special request, sashimi tongue. Ryan went back to the kitchen, and when he opened the fridge to prepare the tongue, he was horrified to discover a terrifying truth. The mechanic's tongue had gone bad, so this dish couldn't be made. The guest wouldn't let the night pass without it. At that same moment, Alice came back and said her car. "I broke down and called a taxi, but what happened next you can definitely imagine. Rayan, get your tongue ready and guess whose tongue?" Surely the answer is obvious. Alice could not escape, but Rowan managed to send a secret message to the detective and asked him to meet him in the bathroom immediately. In the bathroom, Rayan decided to spill everything in his heart. He told the detective at that moment that the meat they ate was from the mechanic they were looking for. The detective's face changed. He rushed to the sink and started throwing up. After he calmed down a bit, the two of them started thinking of a plan, and he told Rayan, "I'll say goodbye to them as if I'm leaving. Then I'll meet you in the basement and we'll figure things out." The detective indeed said goodbye to everyone with a fake smile, but he went straight down to the basement, and as soon as he entered, the scene was more horrific than he could have imagined. Bodies cut up, torture tools, everything screamed that this place was a human slaughterhouse. He tried to call the police, but the disaster was that his phone was charging upstairs in the house. Rayan had the phone, but the detective was so terrified he forgot all his colleagues' numbers, and the only solution was for Rayan to go up and get the phone for him. The detective waited in the basement, hoping Rayan would reach him before disaster struck. But Maurice, who had started noticing Rayan's strange behavior, became suspicious, went down to the basement to check, and as soon as he saw the detective standing there, without hesitating for a moment, he grabbed the electric saw and finished him off in seconds. When Rayan came back, he found the detective drenched in blood, a corpse lying next to Alice's body. The scene was a real nightmare. Even though Rayan tried to expose the truth was Maurice stood there as if nothing had happened and coldly told him, "Clean up this mess. We have guests, and they can't see this scene." After the party ended, Rayan saw Imogen sitting at her laptop, writing emails and composing stories about the victims' deaths, everything running like clockwork for her. Rayan looked at her and, unable to comprehend, asked, "How can you do this and laugh?" Imogen coldly replied, "I'm used to it. Behind me is a very big company, professionals at making any crime disappear." The next morning, Rayan was still awake, eyes open, unable to sleep. He felt like he was trapped in a nightmare he couldn't escape. Everything he'd done replayed in his mind, regret eating him alive. When Imogen came into the room, she told him some strange news. Many clients were happy with his work, and the headquarters nominated him to be the head chef at a much bigger event, with a huge bonus that would make him one of the elite. As a reward, she transferred him the rest of the money, more than $4 million. But before Rayan could rejoice or process what was happening, she told him the next event would be in Africa. Suddenly, Maurice grabbed Rayan without warning and injected something into his neck. Maurice told Rayan as he injected him, "This device will let the company track your every move anywhere in the world, so there's no escape." Rayan surrendered, with no choice but to pack his bag and prepare to travel to London. The same driver who waited for him at the beginning of the journey was coming to pick him up again, as if the story was repeating itself. At that time, Maurice was getting rid of any evidence. He burned Jack's cars. Everything that could link them to the crime was gone. As soon as Rayan arrived at the airport, he sat among the passengers waiting for their flights. There, he met a man who started telling him about himself.